In the heart of West Africa, a new leader has emerged, capturing the attention of the continent and the world. This is the story of Ibrahim Traoré, the interim president of Burkina Faso. Born in 1988, the young military officer ascended to power in a September 2022 coup, promising a new direction for a nation facing immense challenges. Traoré's leadership is defined by a potent blend of nationalism, Pan-Africanism, and anti-imperialist sentiment. He has positioned himself as a leader determined to secure his nation's sovereignty, breaking from traditional Western dependencies. His charismatic style and powerful rhetoric resonate with many, who see him as a modern successor to revolutionary African figures like Thomas Sankara. Since taking office, his administration has focused on tackling the severe Islamist insurgency that has plagued the country. A massive recruitment drive for the National Defense Force was launched to bolster security and reclaim territory. At the same time, Traoré's government has pursued a path of economic self-reliance, rejecting aid from international bodies like the IMF and World Bank, insisting that Burkina Faso can forge its own path to development. Despite his popularity, his rule has not been without controversy, facing criticism for crackdowns on press freedom and political opposition. Yet, he remains one of Africa's most talked-about leaders, a symbol of a confident, assertive new generation. As he steers Burkina Faso through a turbulent period, Ibrahim Traoré is not just shaping the future of his country, but also challenging the very definition of leadership in 21st century Africa. In the heart of West Africa, Burkina Faso has become a flashpoint of instability. For years, the nation has grappled with a relentless jihadist insurgency, a crisis that has fueled deep public dissatisfaction and political turmoil. This climate of fear and frustration set the stage for a dramatic shift in power. The year 2022 saw the country already reeling from one coup, led by Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, who promised security but failed to deliver. The security situation continued to deteriorate, leading to widespread protests and a palpable sense of betrayal among the populace. The stage was set for a new, younger figure to emerge from the ranks of the military. His name, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. On September 30th, 2022, the capital, Ouagadougou, awoke to the sound of gunfire. It was a military takeover, swift and decisive. Traoré, then just 34, led a faction of disgruntled soldiers who seized control of key government and military installations. The coup was executed with precision, targeting the very regime that had itself come to power through force just 8 months prior. Footage from the day shows Burkinabe soldiers, loyal to Traoré, securing the national television headquarters and blocking access to the presidential palace. The atmosphere was chaotic, yet quickly coalesced around the young captain. Traoré and his men accused Damiba of failing to address the escalating security crisis and of prioritizing his own interests over the nation's survival. Damiba initially resisted, leading to a tense standoff, but within 48 hours he agreed to step down to avoid further bloodshed. The coup was complete. Traoré, a relatively unknown figure outside military circles, was suddenly thrust into the national spotlight. His first public appearances were marked by charismatic intensity and a formal, disciplined demeanor. He quickly consolidated his authority, backed by cheering crowds who saw him as a potential savior. Within days, the military junta officially appointed him as the transitional president. Traoré promised to restore security, reform the military, and return the country to constitutional rule when conditions allowed. He immediately began addressing the public and the military, often appearing in his combat fatigues, projecting an image of strength and commitment. His rhetoric resonated deeply, particularly his focus on national sovereignty and self-reliance. The international community reacted with immediate concern. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, which had already suspended Burkina Faso following the previous coup, dispatched high-level delegates to Ouagadougou. These officials, in formal attire, met with Traoré and his team, urging a rapid return to civilian rule and adherence to previously agreed-upon transition timelines. The meetings were tense, reflecting the regional body's frustration with the cycle of coups. Traoré, however, stood firm, asserting that the priority must be security and stability, not arbitrary deadlines. The international response was mixed. While some nations condemned the unconstitutional change of government, others, particularly those facing similar security challenges, watched with cautious interest. Traoré's rise represents a growing trend of young military leaders seizing power in the Sahel region, often capitalizing on anti-French sentiment and promises of decisive action against extremism. As the new leader of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré faces monumental challenges. The jihadist threat remains existential, displacing millions and destabilizing vast swathes of territory. He must navigate complex international relations while delivering on his promises of security and governance. The world watches to see if this charismatic captain can transform his military victory into a lasting solution for a nation desperate for peace. In his own words, Traoré stated, "We have no choice but to fight for our homeland, for our dignity, and for our future." The political landscape of West Africa is currently undergoing a profound and seismic reordering, driven by internal crisis and a growing geopolitical contest. In the heart of the Sahel, a land defined by resilience and strife, a new generation of leaders is emerging, challenging decades of established order. This is the story of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a military officer who, at just 34, seized control of Burkina Faso. His rise is not merely a coup, it is a declaration of defiance, born from a nation pushed to the breaking point by relentless violence and perceived foreign indifference. To understand Traoré, one must first grasp the depth of Burkina Faso's security nightmare. Since 2015, the nation has spiraled into a protracted insurgency, with vast swathes of territory falling under the control of jihadist groups, displacing millions and shattering state institutions. This escalating violence served as the critical fuel for political instability. The frustration had been building for years, dating back to the popular uprisings of 2014, culminating in the first military takeover in January 2022. Yet, the interim government that followed failed spectacularly to curb the bloodshed or restore order. Across Ouagadougou, the calls were loud and unambiguous. The people demanded an end to the insurgency and a decisive break from the established, ineffective strategies, particularly those tied to the lingering presence of foreign military forces. This pervasive sense of abandonment created the perfect vacuum for a radical alternative. By September 2022, the stage was set for a dramatic reshuffle of power. Traoré, then a relatively low-ranking officer, mobilized his forces, executing a swift surgical action that culminated in the removal of the transitional president. The coup itself was less a power struggle among elites and more an expression of raw frustration from the front lines, championed by junior officers who felt betrayed by their commanders. Critically, Traoré's appeal was immediate and massive. He successfully tapped into the popular mood, transforming his military takeover into a televised moment of national catharsis. When he appeared before the cameras, surrounded by his youthful cohort, he offered a stark contrast to the region's aging political guard. At 34, Traoré became the world's youngest sitting head of state, symbolizing a dramatic shift away from the norms of African political succession. Traoré's subsequent actions immediately reflected the priorities he articulated during the takeover. His mandate was rooted in two core demands: restoring security and asserting complete national sovereignty. On the security front, he rapidly scaled up military recruitment and placed immense trust in civilian auxiliary forces, known as the VDP, mobilizing the populace directly against jihadist encroachment. Simultaneously, his administration adopted a stringent stance of economic nationalism, demanding greater control over domestic resources and openly challenging existing colonial-era agreements. Perhaps most significantly, Traoré initiated a seismic shift in Burkina Faso's foreign policy, forcing the withdrawal of French military units and exploring new strategic alliances with powers like Russia. This geopolitical repositioning was a direct answer to the perceived failures and paternalism of Western engagement. However, this radical path is fraught with immense danger and uncertainty. Despite the nationalistic fervor, the core challenges remain grim. The relentless security crisis, the millions of internally displaced citizens reliant on humanitarian aid, and the essential debate over whether military rule can ever truly offer long-term stability or democratic accountability. Traoré has forcefully seized the narrative of national destiny, but now he must contend with the immense weight of expectation. His actions, driven by crisis and youth, have forced the world to reevaluate the dynamics of power in the Sahel. The critical question remains: can this unconventional young leader forge a path toward security and true independence? Or will he simply become another victim of the relentless geopolitical crucible that is West Africa? Captain Ibrahim Traoré's ascent to power in Burkina Faso is a story of swift military maneuvering set against a backdrop of deep national security crisis and political instability. His journey began not with a sole command, but as a part of the patriotic movement for safeguard and restoration, the group of army officers who successfully executed the January 2022 coup d'etat that removed President Roch Marc Kabore. This initial move brought Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba to power, and Traoré, a young artillery officer, served under the new junta. However, the security situation in the country, particularly the fight against extremist groups, did not improve under Damiba's leadership. This failure, coupled with growing internal military discontent, set the stage for the next shift. In September 2022, just 9 months after the first coup, Traoré turned against his former commanding officer, leading a second coup that successfully ousted Damiba. At just 34 years old, Traoré became the world's youngest head of state, citing the failure to adequately address the country's security needs as the primary justification for his action. Traoré quickly cultivated a powerful image. He presented himself as a determined war leader and embraced a strong nationalist, Pan-Africanist, and anti-Western ideology, resonating with a young population dissatisfied with colonial legacies. This persona has drawn comparisons to the revolutionary military leader Thomas Sankara, who seized power at a similar age in 1983. Traoré's regime has since forged closer ties with Russia and withdrawn from the regional body ECOWAS, consolidating power while facing multiple reported coup attempts. His rise exemplifies a growing trend in West Africa, where military leaders capture popular support by promising radical breaks from past political failures. In an age of seasoned politicians and long-established leaders, one man shattered the mold. At just 34 years old, he became the youngest head of state in the world, not through an election, but through a seizure of power. This is the story of Ibrahim Traoré, the soldier captain who took control of Burkina Faso and promised a revolution. When news of the September 2022 coup flashed across global screens, it marked the nation's second military takeover in just 8 months. Yet, on the streets of the capital, Ouagadougou, the reaction wasn't just fear or uncertainty. It was a groundswell of fervent support for the young officer now at the helm. He emerged as a symbol of defiance, a figure promising to restore dignity and sovereignty to a nation besieged by crisis. His rhetoric immediately drew comparisons to a ghost of Burkina Faso's past, the iconic revolutionary Thomas Sankara. Traoré's speeches are laced with the language of Pan-Africanism, a fiery call for self-reliance and a definitive break from colonial-era dependencies, particularly with France. He has swiftly reoriented his country's foreign policy, expelling French troops, strengthening ties with Russia, and forging a new security alliance with neighboring military-led governments in Mali and Niger. This bold pivot has been championed by his supporters as the dawn of a new, assertive era for the Sahel region. They see him not merely as a national leader, but as the heir to Sankara's revolutionary dream, a figure capable of inspiring a continent-wide movement against neo-colonial influence and reclaiming Africa as destiny for Africans. A cornerstone of Traoré's agenda is economic sovereignty, and his primary target has been Burkina Faso's most valuable resource, gold. For years, the nation's vast mineral wealth was largely extracted by foreign corporations, with raw materials shipped abroad for processing and sale. leaving only a fraction of the profits in the country. Traoré's government moved decisively to change this dynamic. They suspended the export of artisanal gold and initiated the construction of the country's first state-owned gold refinery, a project designed to ensure that the final, most profitable stage of production happens on Burkinabe soil. This policy is more than just economics. It is a powerful, tangible symbol of his promise to end the exploitation of national resources and use that wealth to fund the fight against insurgents and develop the country for its own people. However, this rapid ascent to power and popularity has not been without a darker side. While Traoré commands widespread adoration, his rule has been defined by an increasingly authoritarian grip. International observers and human rights groups have raised alarms over a severe crackdown on press freedom, with journalists being detained and foreign media outlets suspended. Political opposition has been silenced, and civil society voices critical of the government have been systematically suppressed. His hold on power is also precarious, a reality underscored by the multiple coup attempts he has reportedly survived in his short time as leader. This constant threat reveals the volatile undercurrents of his rule, where immense popularity coexists with the peril of internal dissent and the ever-present risk of betrayal. Today, Burkina Faso stands at a critical juncture, its fate intertwined with the ambitions and actions of its young leader. The streets echo with chants of his name, and massive rallies demonstrate a deep popular mandate for his revolutionary project. Yet, this wave of support exists alongside a climate of fear and an uncertain political landscape where democratic norms have been cast aside. The nation is caught between the hope for a sovereign, prosperous future and the reality of a military regime consolidating its power. With the Burkinabe flag flying high over a nation in flux, the world watches and waits. The question remains not just what Ibrahim Traoré will do next, but what the future truly holds for Burkina Faso.